The arrival on Xerus Prime. Ethan Carter never intended to land on Xerus Prime. He wasn't an adventurer seeking glory, nor was he a soldier chasing conquest. He was a human explorer, driven by curiosity and a longing to uncover the mysteries of the universe. His mission was simple: map uncharted regions of space, catalog life forms, and gather fragments of history scattered among the stars. But fate, it seemed, had a different plan for him. The trouble began when his small exploration craft, the Stellar Nomad, encountered a violent energy surge near the Xerus system. The surge fried the ship's navigation systems, leaving Ethan hurtling toward a shimmering golden planet he knew nothing about. Alarms blared, the control panel flashed red, and he barely had time to send a distress beacon before his ship plummeted through the dense atmosphere. He braced for impact, certain this was the end. But the crash, though violent, left him alive, shaken, bruised, but breathing. Ethan climbed out of the wreckage, his senses immediately overwhelmed by the alien beauty surrounding him. The forest glowed faintly, as if the golden trees and silver-leafed plants carried the light of the twin suns within them. Strange, melodic whispers floated on the breeze, the kind that didn't just brush past your ears but settled into your mind. It was haunting and enchanting all at once. For the first time since the crash, he allowed himself to breathe deeply, filling his lungs with the thick, heady air of this strange world. It was unlike anything he had encountered before, almost alive, as if the planet itself was watching him. But Ethan wasn't alone. The Golden Forest. Hours passed as he wandered through the Golden Forest, guided by nothing but instinct and a faint energy reading from his damaged scanner. The forest was alive in ways Earth's jungles could never be. Bioluminescent vines slithered along the ground, glowing insects buzzed in rhythmic patterns, and enormous golden trees whispered secrets in a language he couldn't understand. Ethan's body ached, his ribs bruised from the crash, and his throat burned with thirst. He was on edge, every rustling leaf and distant hum making him flinch. He hadn't encountered any signs of intelligent life yet, but the feeling of being watched never left him. It wasn't paranoia. There was something here, something ancient and powerful. He stumbled upon a stream, its water glowing faintly in the twilight. Desperation drove him to kneel by the bank and scoop the liquid into his mouth. The taste was cool and metallic, and it sent a brief shiver down his spine, but it eased his thirst. As he rested by the stream, his scanner flickered to life. A faint energy signal pulsed in the distance, unlike anything he had ever recorded. It was strong, rhythmic, and ancient. Ethan knew he should focus on finding a way off this planet, but something about that signal called to him. He couldn't resist. The Temple of Eternity. The signal led him to the base of a massive cliff, where a colossal structure loomed. The Temple of Eternity. Its obsidian walls shimmered with a faint blue glow, as though the stone itself pulsed with life. Towering statues of armored women, their eyes carved from what looked like molten gold, flanked the entrance. The air was heavy with power, each breath feeling like a weight pressing against his chest. Ethan hesitated. He knew enough about ancient ruins to understand they were rarely abandoned. Someone, or something, still watched over this place. But thirst for knowledge drove him forward. The entrance to the temple was wide open, as if inviting him inside. His boots echoed against the polished stone floor as he stepped into the vast chamber. Light flickered along the walls, not from torches or lamps, but from veins of glowing energy running through the stone. The air hummed with an almost musical resonance, a sound that seemed to reach into his very soul. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, carved from gold and black stone, and atop it rested a glass vial filled with a shimmering violet liquid, the source of the energy signal. The forbidden elixir. Ethan approached the vial cautiously, his heart pounding. It was mesmerizing, like liquid stardust caught in an eternal dance. He couldn't explain why, but he felt drawn to it. His instincts screamed at him to stop, to turn back, but he ignored them. As his hand reached out, The room suddenly erupted in light. A voice, sharp and commanding, rang out behind him. "Stop." Ethan froze. He turned slowly to see a group of tall, elegant women entering the chamber. Their silver armor gleamed under the pulsating light, and their golden eyes burned with fury. Each of them held a weapon, blades made of glowing energy that seemed to hum with deadly intent. The leader stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her dark hair flowing like liquid night, her presence commanding respect and fear in equal measure. "No outsider is allowed to touch the elixir," she said, her voice like steel. "It is punishable by death." Ethan raised his hands, trying to explain himself. "I didn't mean to." But the words were lost as the warriors advanced. Panic surged through him. He stumbled back, his hand knocking against the pedestal. The vial tipped, its contents splashing onto his skin. The first transformation. The effect was immediate. Fire erupted in his veins, and he collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest. His vision blurred, and his body burned with an intensity he had never imagined. The Zarthan warriors stopped in their tracks, their weapons lowering as they watched in horror. The leader's voice was filled with disbelief. "This is impossible." Ethan screamed, his voice echoing through the temple. It wasn't just pain, it was transformation. His muscles tensed, his skin glowed faintly with a violet light, and his mind filled with visions of ancient battles, forgotten empires, and beings of immense power. He was no longer just Ethan Carter, the human explorer. He was becoming something more. The leader of the Zarthans, Lady Kyra, took a step back, her golden eyes wide. "The prophecy," she whispered. "It speaks of this." The temple trembled, and the light from the walls dimmed. Outside, the golden sky darkened unnaturally. A deep guttural roar echoed across the land, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The Zarthans gripped their weapons tightly, their faces pale with fear. Lady Kyra turned to her warriors. "The Sky Tyrants have sensed it. They are coming." Ethan's body convulsed one last time before he collapsed to the ground, the violet glow fading from his skin. The Zarthans surrounded him, their expressions a mix of fear, anger, and awe. "What have you done, human?" Lady Kyra demanded, her voice trembling. "You've awakened a power that was never meant for your kind." Ethan struggled to lift his head, his voice hoarse but resolute. "I didn't choose this, but now I have to survive it." The sound of distant roars grew louder, and the temple's walls began to shake. The battle for survival had begun. The awakening of the Sky Tyrants. The air outside the Temple of Eternity grew heavy, as though the planet itself was holding its breath. Ethan Carter lay on the cold stone floor of the temple, his body trembling from the aftershocks of whatever transformation had begun inside him. Violet light still faintly pulsed beneath his skin, like an ember struggling to ignite. Around him, the Zarthan warriors, tall, fierce, and utterly unyielding, stood frozen, their weapons raised but uncertain. For all their centuries of training, none of them had ever seen a moment like this. Lady Kyra, the leader of the warriors, was the first to move. Her piercing golden eyes scanned Ethan, then shifted to the walls of the temple as tremors rippled through the stone. The energy within the forbidden elixir had not only changed the man but awakened something ancient and terrible. Outside, the golden trees of Xeris Prime began to wither, their luminous leaves curling and falling to the ground as if drained of life. The whispers that had filled the air were replaced by a deep guttural roar, one that sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the temple. "The Sky Tyrants," Kyra said, her voice low but filled with dread. "They've sensed the elixir's awakening." The legends of the Sky Tyrants. For centuries, the Zarthans had guarded the forbidden elixir, not only as a source of power, but as a safeguard against catastrophe. The elixir was not merely a gift from the gods. It was a beacon, a signal that could awaken ancient forces slumbering in the void. The Sky Tyrants were among those forces, beings of unimaginable power, remnants of a time when chaos ruled the cosmos. These monstrous entities thrived on destruction, feeding on the life force of entire worlds. They had waged war against the Zarthans eons ago, seeking to claim the elixir for themselves. Though the Zarthans had fought valiantly, they had never truly defeated the Sky Tyrants. Instead, they had sealed the elixir within the Temple of Eternity, cutting it off from the universe and hiding it from the tyrant's reach. But now, that seal had been broken. The Zarthan warriors exchanged nervous glances, their confidence shaken. Kyra tightened her grip on her energy blade, the golden light of the weapon reflecting her determination. "Prepare for battle," she commanded. "They will come for him." Her words struck Ethan like a blow. Still on his knees, he looked up at her, his breath sagged. "Come for me. Why?" Kyra's gaze bore into him, cold and accusing. "Because you drank the elixir. You've made yourself their target." Ethan's struggle. Ethan tried to rise, but his legs refused to cooperate. His body felt foreign, as if it no longer belonged to him. The visions that had flooded his mind when he drank the elixir lingered, flickering at the edges of his consciousness. He had seen the Sky Tyrants in those visions, massive otherworldly creatures made of darkness and raw energy, their forms constantly shifting as if reality itself struggled to contain them. "I didn't mean to," Ethan said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't know." Kyra's expression didn't soften. "Ignorance does not absolve you of what you've done." Before Ethan could respond, the temple shook violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone floor, and a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The air grew colder, and the light from the glowing walls dimmed, casting the temple into shadow. "They're here," one of the warriors whispered, fear evident in her voice. Kyra turned to her warriors, her voice firm. "Hold the line. No one leaves this temple alive, unless I say so." The first assault. The temple doors exploded inward, sending shards of stone flying through the air. Ethan shielded his face with his arm as a wave of black mist poured into the chamber. The mist twisted and coiled like living smoke, and from its depths emerged the first of the Sky Tyrants. The creature was enormous, its form barely humanoid. Its body flickered between solid and ethereal, as if it existed in multiple dimensions at once. Its eyes burned like twin suns, and its elongated claws crackled with dark energy. The temperature in the room dropped further as the creature stepped forward, its gaze fixed on Ethan. The Zarthan warriors reacted immediately. Golden plasma blades ignited with a hum, and shields of shimmering energy materialized in the air. The first wave of warriors charged, their movements precise and disciplined. The Sky Tyrant moved with impossible speed. It swiped a clawed hand, and 3 warriors were thrown backward, their shields shattering like glass. Another warrior leaped at the creature, her blade striking true. But the tyrant's form rippled, and the attack passed through it harmlessly. Ethan watched in horror as the battle unfolded. The Zarthans fought valiantly, but they were outmatched. The Sky Tyrant was unlike anything he had ever seen, a force of nature that seemed untouchable. And yet, as the creature advanced, its gaze never left him. The awakening within. As the battle raged, Ethan felt a strange sensation building within him. It was a warmth, a light, a power that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The elixir. It wasn't just sitting dormant inside him. It was waking up, responding to the danger. Ethan clenched his fists, his breathing steadying. The violet glow beneath his skin grew brighter, spreading up his arms and across his chest. For the first time since drinking the elixir, he didn't feel weak or afraid. He felt powerful. The Sky Tyrant roared, its voice like a chorus of nightmares, and lunged at him. Ethan moved without thinking. His body reacted on instinct, faster and stronger than it ever had before. He sidestepped the creature's attack, his hand shooting out to grab its wrist. The moment his hand made contact, a shockwave of violet energy erupted from his palm, sending the tyrant reeling. The creature let out a screech of pain, its form flickering as the energy burned through it. The Zarthans paused, their eyes wide with shock. Lady Kira stared at Ethan, disbelief written across her face. What? What did you just do? Ethan didn't know how to answer. His hand still glowed with violet light, and the power within him felt limitless. I don't know, he said, his voice steady. But I think I can fight. The turning tide. The Sky Tyrant recovered quickly, its body twisting and reforming as it prepared to attack again. But this time, Ethan was ready. He stepped forward, his movements fluid and confident, and struck with a force that felt both natural and otherworldly. The Zarthans watched in stunned silence as Ethan fought the creature. He wasn't just surviving, he was winning. Every blow he landed sent ripples of energy through the tyrant's body, disrupting its form and forcing it to retreat. For the first time in centuries, the Zarthans saw a Sky Tyrant hesitate. The creature let out a guttural snarl and dissolved into black mist, retreating into the shadows. Ethan turned to the Zarthans, his violet eyes glowing faintly. What are these things? Kyra stepped forward, her expression unreadable. They are death, she said, and they will not stop until the elixir is theirs, or you are dead. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. Outside the temple, the roars of more Sky Tyrants echoed across the land. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the Zarthans had hope. The Siege of Eternity. The ground outside the Temple of Eternity trembled as the sky darkened unnaturally. What had once been a shimmering golden landscape of towering trees and silver streams now lay shrouded in a growing shadow. The whispers of the wind had turned into mournful wails, as if the planet itself knew the magnitude of the danger that loomed. The Sky Tyrants were coming. Inside the temple, the Zarthan warriors formed a defensive perimeter, their plasma blades humming with golden light. Each of them wore an expression of grim determination, though the fear in their eyes was unmistakable. They were warriors trained to protect their sacred world at any cost, but none of them had ever faced what was coming. Ethan Carter stood at the center of it all, still glowing faintly with violet energy. He had no armor, no weapon, yet the Zarthans couldn't help but glance at him with a mixture of fear and awe. This human, who should have died the moment he drank the forbidden elixir, was alive, and something inside him was awakening. Lady Kira approached him, her golden eyes sharp and unrelenting. You're no warrior, human. Whatever power you have, it doesn't mean you're ready to fight. Ethan met her gaze, the faint glow in his eyes intensifying. I don't need to be ready, he said. I just need to survive. The Sky Tyrants arrive. A deafening roar split the air, followed by the screeching sound of metal tearing. The Zarthans turned toward the temple's massive entrance, where the obsidian doors trembled violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across their surface, glowing with an eerie red light. They're breaking through, one of the warriors shouted. Kyra raised her blade, her voice steady and commanding. Hold the line. Do not let them breach the temple. The Zarthans moved with practiced precision, forming a wall of golden energy shields that shimmered like sunlight. Ethan watched, his heart pounding. He could feel the energy of the Sky Tyrants pressing against the temple walls, like a storm trying to tear its way inside. The air grew colder, and the faint hum of the temple's power began to falter. Then, with a final, earth-shaking crash, the doors exploded inward. The Sky Tyrants surged into the temple, their forms flickering between solid and ethereal. They were massive, their bodies cloaked in black mist that twisted and writhed as if alive. Their glowing red eyes burned with a hunger that sent chills down Ethan's spine. They moved with impossible speed, lunging at the Zarthan warriors with claws made of dark energy. The first clash was brutal. A Sky Tyrant swiped at the Zarthan front line, its claws tearing through energy shields as if they were paper. Warriors were thrown back, their armor sparking as they hit the ground. Another tyrant lunged at Kyra, its form flickering as it struck with a blade of condensed void energy. Kyra parried the blow, her plasma blade flaring with golden light, but the force of the attack sent her stumbling. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, but something inside him, something primal and unrelenting, refused to let him. Instead, he stepped forward, his body pulsing with violet energy. Ethan's first battle. The nearest sky tyrant turned its glowing red eyes toward him. Sensing the power within him, it lunged, its claws crackling with dark energy. Ethan didn't think, he reacted. His hand shot out, and a pulse of violet energy erupted from his palm, colliding with the creature midair. The force sent the tyrant flying into a temple wall, its body dissolving into mist before reforming. The Zarthans froze, their eyes wide with disbelief. No one, not even their most skilled warriors, had ever been able to repel a sky tyrant so effortlessly. Kyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Don't stop. Fight." The Zarthans regrouped, their golden blades flashing as they charged the tyrants. Ethan found himself in the middle of the battle, his body moving with a speed and precision he didn't understand. Every time a tyrant lunged at him, he dodged, his reflexes sharper than they had ever been. When he struck back, his blows carried a power that sent shockwaves through the air. One tyrant tried to flank him, its claws aimed for his back. Ethan spun, catching the creature's wrist mid-swing. The moment he touched it, violet energy surged through his body, burning the tyrant's shadowy form. The creature screeched in pain, its body flickering before disintegrating into nothingness. The Zarthans watched in stunned silence as Ethan stood over the remains of the creature, his hands still glowing. For the first time, they saw a human not as weak or insignificant, but as something terrifyingly powerful. The turning tide. The sky tyrants were relentless, their forms shifting and reforming as they attacked in waves. But Ethan was no longer the same man who had crash-landed on Zerus Prime. The power of the Elixir coursed through him, sharpening his senses and enhancing his strength beyond anything he had ever imagined. He fought alongside the Zarthans, his violet energy clashing with the dark void of the tyrants. Where the Zarthans' golden blades failed, Ethan's raw power succeeded. He didn't just fight. He hunted, moving through the battlefield with a ferocity that matched the tyrants themselves. At one point, Kyra found herself back-to-back with him, her blade slicing through a tyrant's shifting form. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You fight like a beast." Ethan smirked, dodging a claw swipe and countering with a pulse of energy that sent a tyrant flying. "Maybe I've got something to prove." Kyra didn't respond, but for the first time, there was a flicker of respect in her eyes. The Elder's warning. As the battle raged, Elder Mies, the oracle of the Zarthans, stood at the edge of the chamber, her silver robes flowing like liquid metal. Her golden eyes were filled with both awe and terror as she watched Ethan fight. "The prophecy is unfolding," she murmured to herself. "He is not just a man anymore." One of the younger warriors, bloodied but still standing, approached her. "Elder, what does it mean? What will he become?" Mies's gaze shifted to the temple ceiling, where cracks had begun to form, letting in faint rays of the darkened sky. "He will become the end of something, and the beginning of something else." The warrior's face paled. "The sky tyrants, can he stop them?" Mies hesitated, her expression grave. "Perhaps, but the price of his power may be greater than we can bear." The tyrants retreat. After what felt like hours, the sky tyrants began to falter. Ethan's relentless attacks, combined with the Zarthans' coordinated strikes, were too much even for them. One by one, the creatures dissolved into black mist, retreating into the shadows. Their roars echoed through the temple, not in defiance, but in defeat. The last tyrant lingered at the edge of the chamber, its glowing red eyes fixed on Ethan. It spoke, its voice a deep, guttural vibration that sent chills through everyone present. "This is not over, chosen abomination. They will come for you." With that, the creature vanished, leaving only silence in its wake. Ethan stood in the center of the battlefield, his chest rising and falling as the violet glow around him dimmed. The Zarthans stared at him, their weapons lowered but their tension still high. For the first time in their history, they had driven back the Sky Tyrants, not with their sacred blades, but with the power of a human. Kyra stepped forward, her golden eyes locked on Ethan. "You're more dangerous than I imagined," she said. "But this is far from over. The tyrants will return, and next time, they won't hold back." Ethan met her gaze, his expression calm but resolute. "Then we'll be ready." Outside, the sky began to lighten, but the temple remained shrouded in unease. The battle had been won, but the war was only beginning. Awakening the Starborn. The air inside the Temple of Eternity was heavy with the aftermath of the battle. The golden plasma blades of the Zarthan warriors flickered out one by one, leaving the chamber bathed in the faint violet glow that radiated from Ethan Carter. Around him, the shattered remnants of the once impenetrable walls lay scattered, while the blackened stains of dissolved sky tyrants marred the sacred stone floor. For the first time since the Zarthan warriors had taken up their sacred duty, the temple felt vulnerable, exposed. The sky tyrants' retreat was not a victory. It was a prelude to something far worse. Ethan stood motionless at the center of the chaos, his body trembling with residual energy. He stared at his hands, the faint trails of violet light still coursing through his veins like rivers of molten power. He didn't feel like himself anymore. He wasn't sure who, or what, he was becoming. Lady Kira broke the silence, her voice cutting through the tension. "We need answers," she said, stepping forward. "And we need them now." Elder Mies, the temple's oracle, nodded solemnly from the edge of the room. Her silver robes glimmered faintly in the low light as she stepped forward, her golden eyes fixed on Ethan. "The prophecy foretold this moment, but even I did not foresee the scale of what has been unleashed." Ethan's gaze snapped to her, his voice low but steady. "What prophecy?" "The prophecy of the Starborn." Elder Mies gestured toward the intricate carvings that adorned the temple walls. Symbols of light and shadow swirled together in an eternal dance, depicting scenes of ancient battles and celestial beings. Her voice was tinged with reverence as she began to speak. "The prophecy speaks of a foreigner, one not of our blood, who would awaken the power of the Elixir. This being would be neither mortal nor divine, but something in between, a bridge between the realms of men and gods. The Starborn." Ethan frowned, his violet eyes narrowing. "And what does that mean? What am I?" Mies hesitated, her expression troubled. "It means you are both our greatest hope and our greatest fear. The Elixir was never meant for mortals, but it chose you, and in doing so, it has marked you as something new." Kyra crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "Prophecies are riddles at best. What matters now is what we do with him." Ethan felt a surge of frustration. "Do with me? I didn't ask for this. I didn't choose to crash here or drink your sacred potion." "You didn't choose," Mies said quietly, her golden eyes meeting his. "But the universe did." The gathering storm. Before Ethan could respond, a deep rumble echoed through the temple, shaking the very foundation. Dust rained down from the cracked ceiling as the faint hum of the temple's ancient energy shields began to falter. Kyra's hand went to her plasma blade, her golden eyes scanning the room. "What now?" Elder Mies' expression darkened. "The Sky Tyrants were only the beginning. The Elixir's awakening has sent a ripple through the cosmos. Others will come, beings far older and more dangerous than the Tyrants." Ethan clenched his fists, the violet energy in his veins flaring momentarily. "Then we stop them." Kyra shot him a sharp look. "You think this is that simple? The power you have, it's unpredictable, dangerous. You're as much a threat to us as they are." Ethan took a step closer to her, his voice steady. "Then teach me. Help me control it." Mies placed a hand on Kyra's shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "He's right. If we're to survive what's coming, we must prepare him." The trial of the Starborn. Mies led them deeper into the temple through winding corridors lined with ancient glyphs that seemed to glow faintly as Ethan passed. The Zarthan warriors followed at a distance, their movements wary. They didn't trust him, and Ethan couldn't blame them. He didn't trust himself. They reached a hidden chamber, its entrance sealed by a massive stone door engraved with intricate carvings. Mies placed her hand on the door, and the symbols flared to life, unlocking the chamber with a low, resonant hum. Inside, the room was bathed in a soft, ethereal light. At its center stood a massive obelisk made of a material Ethan couldn't identify. It shimmered like liquid metal, yet it pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost alive. "This is the core of eternity," Mies explained. "It holds the knowledge of the Elixir, the key to understanding its power. But accessing it is not without risk." Ethan stepped closer, the obelisk's light reflecting in his violet eyes. "What kind of risk?" Mies's gaze was somber. "The core will test you. It will force you to confront the very essence of who you are, and who you might become. If you fail, it could destroy you." Kyra's voice was cold. "If he fails, at least we'll know he wasn't strong enough." Ethan shot her a glare. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Ignoring her, he reached out, his fingers brushing against the surface of the obelisk. The moment he made contact, a surge of energy shot through him, and the world around him dissolved into light. The vision of infinity. Ethan found himself standing in a void, surrounded by swirling galaxies and endless stars. It was both beautiful and overwhelming, a vast expanse that seemed to stretch into eternity. A voice echoed through the void, deep and resonant. "Who are you?" Ethan turned, but there was no one there. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I'm Ethan Carter," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You are more than that now." The stars around him shifted, forming images, scenes from his life. He saw himself as a child, running through a field on Earth. He saw his first spaceship, the excitement of exploration. And then he saw the crash, the moment his ship had been pulled into the orbit of Zirus Prime. The images changed, showing him the moment he drank the elixir. He saw the violet energy coursing through his body, the transformation that had begun. And then he saw something else, something terrifying. He saw himself standing alone in a ruined galaxy, his body radiating power. Around him, the stars were dim, as if they had been drained of their light. He saw entire civilizations falling to their knees before him, not in worship, but in fear. "No," Ethan whispered, shaking his head. "That's not me." The voice echoed again. "It could be. Power corrupts, Ethan Carter. And the power you wield is greater than any the universe has ever known." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then I'll prove you wrong." The return to reality. Ethan's eyes snapped open, and he stumbled back from the obelisk, his chest heaving. The room was silent, the Zarthans watching him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Mies stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You survived. What did you see?" Ethan's gaze met hers, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "I saw what I could become, and I won't let it happen." Kyra crossed her arms, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. "We'll see." Before anyone could say more, the temple shook violently, the distant sound of explosions echoing through the corridors. One of the warriors rushed into the chamber, his face pale. "Lady Kyra, Elder Mies, the Sky Tyrants are back, and they've brought reinforcements." Ethan's eyes glowed faintly as he straightened, the power inside him surging once more. "Then let's finish this." The Starborn's choice. The battlefield was a cacophony of destruction. The Sky Tyrants had returned with overwhelming force, their blackened forms swarming the skies above Zirus Prime. Energy blasts ripped through the air, and the once pristine Temple of Eternity was reduced to crumbling ruins. The Zarthan warriors fought valiantly, their golden plasma blades clashing against the void-forged weapons of their enemies, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. At the center of the chaos stood Ethan Carter, glowing with unrestrained power. The violet energy coursing through his veins pulsed in rhythm with the very fabric of reality, bending the rules of existence to his will. Around him, the sky tyrants fell like shadows consumed by light, their dark forms evaporating as he unleashed wave after wave of devastating energy. Lady Kira and Elder Mies fought alongside him, their movements coordinated and precise. For the first time, the Zarthans fought not to protect their sacred elixir but to support the human who had become their only hope. The Tyrant King emerges. The battle reached a sudden lull, a silence that felt heavier than the chaos before it. From the darkened sky, a massive figure descended, a sky tyrant unlike any they had seen before. Its form was colossal, shifting and flickering like a living void. Its crimson eyes burned with ancient malice, and its voice resonated in the minds of all present. You, Starborn, have disrupted the balance. You have stolen what was never meant for your kind. Ethan stepped forward, his glowing eyes meeting the Tyrant King's gaze. I didn't steal anything. The elixir chose me. The Tyrant King's voice deepened, dripping with contempt. Then you will face judgment. If you think your power can rival the will of the void, prove it. Ethan's fists clenched, and the ground beneath him cracked as his energy flared. If you want to see what I'm capable of, come and find out. A battle beyond reality. The Tyrant King surged forward, its form expanding to encompass the entire horizon. It lashed out with tendrils of pure darkness, each strike capable of tearing apart the fabric of space. Ethan moved faster than thought, weaving through the onslaught with grace and precision. He countered with blasts of violet energy, each strike illuminating the battlefield like a dying star. The two forces clashed, their battle transcending physical space. The ground beneath them disintegrated, and the sky above twisted into a kaleidoscope of swirling energy. Time itself seemed to fracture as their attacks tore through reality, creating ripples that echoed across the cosmos. Kyra and the Zarthans watched in awe and terror, their weapons useless against the sheer scale of the conflict. For them, it was no longer a battle but a spectacle of power beyond comprehension. The turning point. Ethan pushed harder, his energy surging to levels he didn't know he possessed. But the Tyrant King was relentless, its attacks growing more vicious with every passing moment. For the first time, Ethan felt the strain of his power, the weight of the elixir pressing against the limits of his existence. The Tyrant King sneered, "You cannot win. Your power is finite, Starborn. You are but a flicker in the eternal void." Ethan gritted his teeth, his body trembling under the pressure. But then he remembered the vision from the core of eternity, the voice that had asked him who he truly was. He wasn't just a man or a god. He was something new, something the universe had never seen before. "I'm not finite," Ethan growled, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "I'm the balance." With a final surge of energy, he unleashed a shockwave so powerful it shattered the Tyrant King's form, scattering its essence across the void. The remaining sky tyrants faltered, their connection to their leader severed. One by one, they disintegrated, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. The aftermath. As the dust settled, the battlefield was eerily quiet. The Zarthan warriors stood frozen, their gazes fixed on Ethan. His glowing eyes had dimmed, and the violet energy around him flickered weakly. He looked exhausted, his body barely holding together after the immense strain of the battle. Lady Kira approached him cautiously, her voice softer than it had ever been. "You've done it. The tyrants are gone." Ethan gave a faint smile, but there was no triumph in his expression. "It's not over. The elixir, it's too much. If I stay like this, I'll become a danger to everyone." Elder Mies stepped forward, her golden eyes filled with sorrow. "There is a way, but it will cost you everything." Ethan nodded. "Tell me." The final sacrifice. Elder Mies led Ethan to the heart of the ruined temple, where the shattered remains of the core of eternity still pulsed faintly. She explained that by merging his essence with the core, he could stabilize the elixir's power and ensure it would never fall into the wrong hands again. But it would mean giving up his physical form, becoming one with the energy that sustained the universe. Kyra's voice wavered. You don't have to do this. There has to be another way. Ethan shook his head. There's no other way. This power, it's not meant to be contained. I can feel it slipping. If I don't do this, it'll consume me and everyone else. He turned to Kyra, a faint smile on his lips. Tell Earth I did something good for once. Before she could respond, Ethan stepped into the core. The energy enveloped him, and his body began to dissolve into light. For a moment, the entire temple was bathed in a blinding glow. And then, silence. A new era. The Zarthans rebuilt their temple in the years that followed, honoring Ethan's sacrifice. The core of eternity remained stable, its energy a beacon of hope and unity for all who sought it. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not through domination or destruction, but through selflessness. Lady Kyra became the leader of the Zarthan warriors, her once cynical heart softened by Ethan's actions. Elder Mies continued to serve as the oracle, her wisdom guiding the next generation of protectors. And though Ethan was gone, his legacy lived on. Across the galaxy, stories of the Starborn spread, inspiring humans and aliens alike to believe in the strength of unity and the power of sacrifice. High above Zerus Prime, the stars shimmered a little brighter, as if watching over the world Ethan had saved. And in the depths of the cosmos, the energy of the Starborn lingered, a quiet reminder that even in the face of unimaginable power, humanity's greatest strength lies in its capacity for hope, courage, and selflessness. The end.